Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our midweek edition of the P-LotPodcast. John here, joined once again by the main man himself, Michael Angelillo. Michael, how we doing, man?
Um, how are we doing?
That could be a
Well, the
rhetorical
last time, the last
one.
time we sat down, we voiced all of our concerns with the team and whatnot. But this time around, we're not going to have to do that. So that is that's good, at least.
Yeah,
It was awful.
there's just Philly sports right now is just really bad. Tyson Forster is one of my favorite players, not just on the Flyers, but probably in all of Philadelphia. Is going to be out for the next 2 to 3 months with an upper body injury, something to do with his shoulder slash
Potentially tricep.
arm, because his arm uh, was just dangling when he was getting off the ice. It looks really bad. Um,
2 to 3 months. I mean, that's no
I
joke, man.
saw
That is
someone. I
a
saw someone joke. They're like, "Oh well, pretty much all of February there's going to be no NHL hockey because of the Olympics, so it's really like a 2 month injury."
yeah. The hope, I guess, is that he's ready post Olympics. But regardless, that sucks. One of the few players that we do view in a positive light, and also as a legitimate contributing piece moving forward to if slash when this franchise ever actually really starts moving in the right
Kind of
direction.
neutral.
Yeah. And unfortunately, him being down for 2 months with who knows what the injury is, we'll probably never find out because the NHL just allows teams to just not disclose what injuries are. Very strange, but it's always been this way, I guess.
Yeah, if knowing what happened to John F. Kennedy was categorized by NHL an upper body
Upper
injury,
body injury, yeah.
which
So
sounds absurd, but that's
it's
unfortunate
it's true. It's what it
how
is.
stupid it is. But
So yeah,
regardless,
the brief Flyers chatter before we really just get into football because whatever. Their record is good. They are winning games. Dan Vladar has been very, very nice and certainly been an upgrade at the goaltender position. Something we haven't seen since like he who shall not be named, who's actually making his debut tonight with his new team. Um, Wishing all the worst, but he's been like such an upgrade for them with the goalie situation, and it's done a lot of the heavy lifting because we know the Flyers have had issues generating offense. We know they've had issues generating shots, even, but they are or were at least in the bottom 10, closer to the bottom 5 in total goals and all that sort of stuff. And they've just been winning really ugly. Like they're tied with a few other teams for like the second most uh, overtime and shootout wins. And obviously, all wins count, whatever. But usually, when it boils down to it, the teams that actually go far and win are the teams that have the most regulation wins. The teams that take care of business in
you
regulation.
like the Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah, absolutely dominating teams. They only, when they go to overtime, they lose because they just dominate you usually otherwise. But yeah, so they're obviously not a true contender, even though their record is putting them up in a good spot as of now. Um, Eventually, I think it'll all come falling flat, but this is all just an overperformance, which you can really argue is hurting them more than it's helping them in terms of actually being a legitimate
I
threat.
agree with that if they're not like making these grand plans to improve the team, and by that I mean like not make acquiring some of the big name players like you mentioned, like before we hit
Mm-hmm.
excuse me, before I hit the go live button. Like in other words, like in 2018, the Phillies they were in neutral, but we all knew the following off season, Bryce Harper was a free agent, Manny Machado was a free agent.
Yeah, there
So
was there was reason to believe that they were going to be involved
JT
in
Real Muto was
franchise altering.
likely to JT Real Muto was most likely going to be traded by the Miami Marlins.
Yeah, like there were signs that were pointing to, well,
I
you
don't
know,
get
if they're
any of that from the Flyers right now.
no,
None.
you get from the Flyers a lot of patience and like, oh, if the right opportunity presents itself, instead of like go force the issue, go make the play. The Phillies went and made the trade for Real Muto as a part of the bargaining chip to acquire Bryce Harper in free agency. Like that was all part of it. Um, and they sat on their hands at the draft and just made their picks and didn't trade anything. And like
I think it's because
these
they
are
got
the
Porter
they traded a
Martel.
second for Zegras. I can't ignore that. But again, that's a disgruntled player that there were questions on if he'd ever be able to figure it out. And it's like those are the swings you should be taking when you're in this spot. But there were also a lot of proven commodities that have been moved within the last I don't know, 18 months or so. And the Flyers just not really making a serious offer for any of them is unfortunate. Because they're just like, oh, well, we'll wait till they hit free agency. And then all these guys don't hit free agency because they get traded and their new teams extend them. So is what it is. It's very frustrating. We definitely, yeah, you're in your like when you were in your youth and like your adolescence or whatever, you grew up watching some good Flyers hockey. I had a nice, very brief period of my early life of like actual Flyers contention, but we're very soon, to both being the bulk of our lives with a very embarrassing hockey team and hockey
You know what
franchise.
they are?
And it's a shame.
You know
It's a
what they
shame. It really
basically
is.
are? They're the NHL equivalent to the Raiders.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. Dominance back in the day in the 70s and like really good in the 80s. Obviously they never got over the hump after their first two, but they were there. They were considered a storied franchise, historic franchise, one of the best in the league in the sport, very well respected. And the Flyer name has really been disgraced over the last 10 to last like 15 years or so. And that's the same. That blows, man. There's nothing, we would love to see more. Very exciting how fun playoff hockey is, and when your team's in it, and how that like adrenaline stress levels, but it's fun. It's similar to the playoff baseball environment we've been lucky enough to experience the last handful of years. And you just hope that one day somehow the Flyers flip that switch and get into that same mode.
Yeah,
Like
because the big thing is going to be.
they're in their Sixers era pre-Embiid, and it's like it's just a lot harder to build out a contender in hockey than it is in basketball because there's just less guys. There are less players to
It's
do.
funny. My friend of the show, Zach, and I were talking, and he was like, "Oh my god, maybe we'll just bomb for McKenna." And I'm like,
They're not close right now. Like,
well, that whole thing is a fugazi. Like, I got to be honest. Like in the NBA, realistically, barring like special circumstances, like Nico Harrison demolishing the Mavericks, right?
right.
They magically get the first overall pick. We
You got to take
coincident,
your swings. You got to take your
right?
swing. Is my
Right,
point. And,
but
and
I would say this though, like realistically, if they want to get back into the lottery and then have a potential to draft another franchise altering player, you know, I'm actually they should probably, if Ladar keeps playing well, then at the deadline he's going to be a hot commodity because there's going to be a contender that has a goalie who's injured, we're struggling, and they may think, oh crap, we should probably add another goalie just
oh,
in
well, this
case.
will be like we got to push our chips in. You know what I mean? And
Exactly. Or like, I don't know, what if he who shall not be named just blows
right.
for the Golden
Well, listen,
Knights and they need a goalie?
there's a lot of things that could turn up that they could do to better themselves. But we've talked about this before. It's made the
Because
national
the Florida
rounds.
Panthers right now, Michael, aren't looking. I don't think the Florida Panthers are going to win the Stanley Cup this year.
No, I mean they won back to back. They've been to three straight. It's no sweat off their back. It's just like they're probably a couple years too late in terms of actually picking a direction and going. They've tried to toe this middle line of
Well, no,
wanting to
I
keep
think
some of their
honestly,
veterans.
I do think now if they really want to get serious about tanking, and you're not going to like what I'm about to say, then do you dangle Zegras and be like, give me like 4 first rounders,
I mean, he's
or,
not getting 4 first rounders, and it's
or just
like,
or something like
hey, I
wild.
understand that, but it's like they missed their spot. Like getting Zegras, that's your step in the right direction. Drafting Michkov, those are your steps in the right direction. Forster
Martone.
panning out, that sort of thing. Martone, but like we talk about it all the time, extending Owen Tippett because you felt like a sunk cost. We traded Giroux for him. We really need him to work out. Extending Konechny is like, wow, this was the guy, and he is the embodiment of the city and a player, and like that's we can't let this
I
guy
don't think
walk. And
I
Sean
know I
Couturier,
know you
we got
keep
to give him
harping
the
on I know
extension.
you keep harping on Konechny. The real issue is obviously Couturier just being
What
cooked.
do you think you could have gotten for Konechny if you traded him after the bubble, the first year after the bubble? When you tried to run it back the year you traded Giroux at the deadline, that off season, if you really were like, we're blowing the entire thing up, you could have got a nice king's ransom for
Yeah, but we
Travis
don't really
Konechny at
know.
that
Well,
age.
I mean, do we? Here's the thing, though. If what they would have gotten back, we don't really know if what they would have gotten back would have panned out.
No, but what we do know is that he hasn't been enough as like a top player, and you're paying him like such, and you're just kind of stuck with it.
Is 8.5 million really like elite player money?
It's very good player money, and he's an
Well, that's what he
aging,
is. He's basically
undersized forward
you
that.
just made the Sixers comp. He's Iguodala. He's the Flyers version of Iguodala.
And when did it really be evident that the Sixers were tearing everything down? When he was let go,
Well,
along with
no, they
Drew
let him go to
Holiday,
bring in
and
Andrew
along with
Bynum. That's revisionist history on your part.
what they let him go to bring in Bynum.
Yeah,
At
he
that
was in the
point,
trade. It
what was it, a 3-team trade
was a
at the
4-team
time?
trade. They sent
This
so
revisionist
the
history.
Lakers. So the Lakers sent Bynum to the Sixers. The Sixers sent Iggy to the Nuggets,
Yeah,
and then I forgot who the Lakers.
2012. That was after they lost to the Celtics, and they were like,
Right,
okay, let's push.
right,
We need a center, I guess.
right.
This trade was part of the Dwight Howard trade as well. Oh my god. What a bizarre.
It's probably the craziest trade in terms of like moving pieces.
I mean, the Sixers. Well, Vucevic, dude, Vucevic went to the Magic that early on. Holy hell!
Yeah, yeah, it's one of the worst.
Regardless.
So my
You
point,
took your swing.
but I guess my point is though, if you were actively rebuilding, like as the Flyers were like truly a like tanking team, right? Which they were for a couple years. Drafting Cutter Gauthier and then like a guy who is going to be one of your building blocks, just telling you, I don't want to play for you, kind of he kind of unprecedented in modern NHL. I know people are like, oh,
No,
Lindros.
yeah, for sure. It
Lindros
blows.
was over 30 years ago. Like, come on,
When
man.
when you could have traded Konechny, you're telling me you wouldn't have got a King's ransom after his age 26 season, after the 2023-2024 season, when he just put up 33 goals, 35 assists, 68 points, back-to-back seasons with over 30 goals, was a +4 for a bad team, somehow managed to be a plus. What would you have gotten for him? A guy that before he turns 27 in the offseason, you would have got a lot. You really would have got a lot. Draft capital, prospect, whatever you need, you would have got a nice chunk of it. And it would have just opened up, I think, a new era of just we're committing to being bad here. You probably still would have been bad enough to get Michkov, even if you didn't pick at 7. You would have taken him at 3 or wherever. You weren't going to be better without him, and things would have
Now,
just started turning.
Michael, I don't know. Like, I don't think the Konechny thing is as egregious as the
It's not as
obviously
egregious, but it's just you need to pick a
like
direction,
like
and I
them
think
giving
keeping a
Tippett
player
that
like
big
that isn't a
like
direction.
them giving Tippett that big contract is like when the Phillies first got Vince Velasquez and were like, oh no, we're not going to
Well,
trade him. That's pretty much what that is.
I mean, it's you traded your franchise player for a guy you were like, this guy needs to work out because we traded the franchise for him. Simple as that. And
Well, no,
he
they
never panned
well no,
out.
remember they waited a long time to trade Giroux. They
They
could have
waited
got
too long. They waited way too long. That's my point. And now what? We're gonna trade Konechny in 2 years later down the line from now? When it's like, well, we got to do it now because he's expiring in a year. Like you you get it, and it's just
I mean,
they they
I'm just
sat on their
saying. I
hands
mean,
for
I'm saying
years.
that I would say the more egregious issues, like they should have traded Konechny. I'm not going to say that disagree with you on that,
It's if we
but
had
I
this
don't think it would have
conversation.
saved the Flyers if they traded Konechny. The issue is that, like you said, like basically all the damage Chuck Fletcher did, but like kind of like okay, big picture going forward. How much is Danny Briere hasn't blamed Chuck Fletcher at all because that would have just not would have flown at all.
Yeah, yeah,
You can't do that as an executive. Blame the previous guy.
no, but it
Like
just
if there's anybody that could have blamed a previous
they've
guy
been here
for
for a
screwing a
while.
team up, it could have been Howie to Chip Kelly because Chip
Yeah, but
Kelly shut in a closet.
they've had enough time at this point to pick a
Well,
direction, and
Danny's
they're
only
just
been the GM for 3 years now, though, right?
okay. And when did I say they could have traded Konechny? 3 years ago, 2 years ago, really? Like it's just that could have been your first move as a GM, and everyone would have been like, "Whoa, whoa, making big moves
So if
here,
they got a
big
first and a second for
total."
Konechny, would that be like a?
Do you think that would have been it? He's 26. He's young, age
We
prime.
also have to pay him too.
Sure, but they
Well,
would have had two
I'm sorry
years
with
before they
hockey
would have had to
trades,
pay him.
like for hockey trades, I feel like hockey is like you trade a big name player for another big name player.
I mean, usually if you're a good team and you're trading away a disgruntled player like Natchez from Carolina, good young player that was
Like
disgruntled. But
if
when
we
you're trying to
traded
like,
Konechny for let's say prospects. I don't know, man. The Flyers have this issue. They've got this glut of wingers. Where we were talking before the show, and we're like, oh, maybe they'll call up Bump, and I'm like, why? So Bump can just watch the rest of the team skate while he never plays?
oh, listen, I hear you.
You know,
The
like
Maple Leafs acquired Phil Kessel for 2 firsts and a second way back in the day, and then the Penguins
Phil
got
Kessel
Phil
at that
Kessel
time
for
was a
three
better
young.
player than Travis Konechny. I will tell you that right now.
In 2009 is a long time ago. When the Penguins acquired him, they traded a first, a third, and like Kasperi Kapanen, who at the time was, good young prospect. Listen, it's not to say guarantee that it would have worked or whatever,
I
but my
mean, would
point
it make
is
it even
they've
worse where
just
they
been
would pick
sitting on their
higher? Like
hands. They're just delaying
probably.
on it. They're just delaying everything. They're delaying actually picking a direction. Like 3 years ago, when we're talking about the Flyers, we're like, well, maybe in like 3 years, things will be on the up and up, and they'll be looking good. 3 year
I
fast forward, here
felt
we
they were
are.
in that mode when they traded Sean Walker at the deadline and got a first.
I mean, that was just like the easy thing to do. It's
Like
like, okay,
last
here's an
year,
expiring veteran
I don't know,
defenseman.
trading Walton to get a first.
Again, easy things to
If they would
do.
have traded Risto and got another first, then it's like, well, are we really blaming Danny for not trading guys and getting like assets back? Like
No, but
he's getting first round picks for basically like I don't want to say trash, but it's like you are getting good assets back.
those aren't the hard moves though. Trading away your third line center who has like zero legitimate upside
Yeah,
to turn
but
into
now there's
something he's
stuff like
not.
who the
It's
heck
hard to trade your good players that actually are good and you have this emotional connection to them. It's hard to do that.
Well, you're not trading Cates, you're not trading Brink, you're not trading Michkov,
You
you're
might
not
trade
trading
Brink.
Forster.
You got a lot of wingers, man. You got to open up some room somewhere. Maybe Brink does go and like as a part of a bigger deal to get a start. Whatever. It's just 3 years ago we said in 3 years.
Also they've been in like serious cap hell.
They've been 2 years away for like 8 years now. That's why we're frustrated because they keep saying, well, in a couple years it'll be better. In a couple years it'll be better. It's never better. It's always like this. We're sick of it. It's awful. When are you going to actually commit to a side and truly own being bad?
Yeah, it's not like dating. Like, so, dude. So back in the day, you mentioned like Flyers when I was young. You know what the move the Flyers made that really made them like one of the best teams in the '90s and like early 2000s? So they had Mark Recchi. You've heard of Mark Recchi,
Of
right?
course.
Mark Recchi. He played for the Flyers twice.
Mm-hmm.
The first time he played for the Flyers traded him to the Montreal Canadiens for two like young players that weren't playing a whole lot. John LeClair and Eric Desjardins.
Wow, they took a swing and traded away their star player. Shocker.
And that was
How
like
could you? That was
like
30 years
I would have
ago.
been like trading TK and then getting like Tage Thompson and another guy, and they're both really good.
Yeah, and like Rasmus Dahlin or something. But I know the timeline. But
Like I
yes,
agree with you, dude. Like I would
ultimately,
do
yes.
that. Like, dude, if like I would trade TK and like I don't know, do a rather Recchi trade. Like I'd do it. Why not?
We're just like
Why not?
that shelf. I'm all down for it, but he's a lot less valuable now than he was 3 years ago.
Because of his contract. It wasn't
Because
the
of the
cap.
contract.
Wasn't the cap going up anyway? So who cares about the
It's the
contract?
contract, but
Well,
it's also
Cale Makar is going to get like 19 million a year.
the production has dropped. Last year, he only scored 24 goals. That was 7 and 9 less goals than he scored the previous 2 seasons. This year, he's only
Well,
on pace for
you had like the
what?
devil as the coach last year too.
Well, and what do they have this year? Did they make a better coaching hire?
I can't. You can't say.
You can't say for certain.
I hate these darn ads that play on ESPN. Sorry.
Yeah.
Anyway,
But I mean, enough ranting about the Flyers. Well, we could do this for years at this point. Let's get into football. So we had a handful of games.
oh, you don't want to. I was going to mention. I was going with my rant about how Philadelphia sports sucks. I want to talk about something that's not the football team. It's the baseball team about that Jeff Passan report.
Okay.
Do you really think the Mets are going to sign Kyle Schwarber?
No. I think the Phillies are gonna kind of fold to whatever it needs to be the highest bidder. I think they recognize how important he is. I do think it's true that we need him more than he needs us. And I think that, they're gonna listen. We'll see. A lot of this could be smoke and mirrors, but if they're very much hell bent on switching up the culture and the vibe of that Mets team, I think Schwarber would be a perfect fit for them. I think he'd be a nice fit in Boston. There's a lot of good teams that would be a good fit. The Cubs are another team that makes a lot of sense. Obviously, the Reds, if they're ever serious about actually spending money, that's another team that make a lot of sense. It's competitive, and he's going to get years and AAV, and the Phillies are just going to kind of have to fork over whatever they have to do because Schwarber, it's 6 years. I think people would be a little happier about that than like Tucker at 10 years. And if you don't do either of those things and just kind of leave with what you have, then you're kind of closing on that window on yourself.
Most overrated players in baseball.
Who? What?
I do think Kyle Tucker is one of the most overrated players in baseball.
Sure. I think whether you think he's great, whether you think he's overrated, whatever you think of him, they're saying he's going to get a 9-10 year contract, and that's going to be a lot of years past the age of like 33.
Wait, we're going to lock the players out, but hey, let's give Kyle Tucker 10 years.
Listen, you see when they have a need, they kind of just do whatever they need to do. They did it with Trey Turner. They did it with um, both like Nola to an extent, and so we're just gonna have to see. They're making it seem like JT is gonna sign shortly. Full expectation is that he comes back here, but they also made it seem like the first big fish to fall is going to be Schwarber. So they're thinking the reports are that he's going to set the market for everybody else. So if that's true. He's not going to get a discount. That's for sure.
Right.
But yeah, let's pivot. Let's
Yeah.
let's pivot to things that are less frustrating. NFL Week 13 ended up being a pretty good one. We were poo pooing on the slate. We ended up getting some pretty good games, even with the bad teams. They were entertaining games. We got perhaps the biggest upset of the season, and yeah, so let's. There's a couple games that are just so not worth spending much time. So let's start with that one. 49ers Browns in Cleveland, pretty much a whole massive nothing burger.
Yeah, I'll say this though, man, is that remember we looked at the Niners schedule and we're like, they should win like 11 games just because this is the worst schedule, like the easiest schedule in the league. It just does feel the Niners every week play like legit, like the biggest, most slop in the NFL.
I mean, to just put the NFC in perspective, the Chicago Bears are the current 1 seed at 9-3, and the current 7 seed San Francisco 49ers are 9-4. So there's a half game difference between the top team in the NFC and the final playoff team in the NFC at this current juncture. So if the league is in such a weird place where the contenders are the normal usual suspects are all kind of mid, they're all struggling. The only team that feels like the most complete and most real are like the Rams, but then they just go ahead and drop one to Carolina. And, it does feel like I texted you, we're going to get like a baseball type NFL playoffs where it's just like close your eyes, throw a dart, and guess whatever's going to happen.
I think
That's what
we
I feel
may
like is
see
going
the
to happen.
greatest NFL playoffs we've seen in a very long time in terms of pure
Greatest,
unpredictability.
yeah. I was gonna say like greatest. Like when I think of greatest, it'll be like, oh, that's what a duel between Brady and Mahomes that was, or like
Or like
something.
Brady and Stafford in the
Yeah,
clown game.
or
Yeah.
Manning, whatever. We're not even getting like Mahomes and Allen. What another
We're
masterpiece of a
getting
game.
Bo Nix and
Right, we're getting a lot of slop.
Trevor Lawrence.
We're getting quarterbacks that could all play like garbage, but still maybe win the game because of just the way that everything's going, because the other quarterback could be worse regardless. So this Browns 49ers game wasn't much of anything other than the Niners just banking home another win. Their banged up defense playing well, granted against, not a good offense. And nothing much else to say about it other than that. The Niners, they're 9-4, and it's like they're still kind of fighting for their lives out there in the NFC West and the playoffs. They're 9-4 in third place in their division.
I
It's
guess for
it's
the
not a fun
Browns,
place to
I
be.
guess on the positive side for the Browns, well, I mean, Miles Garrett, I mean,
He's minus 1,500 to win Defensive Player of the Year, so
I
that's
had him
fun
as
for him,
defensive
I
player
guess.
of the year. I told
You
you.
did, you
I
did, you
did. And,
did.
and guess what? Bro should be MVP if, he didn't get hurt because you look at that we'll talk about, well, we already talked about the
I mean,
Bengals.
he's gonna break the sack record probably.
I would assume
I
so.
would assume, barring health. But the next game we have up here,
Speaking of trash,
I mean,
dude,
I
what
don't know
the
what
hell were
game you
we
have
thinking
next, but
picking the
the
Titans, bro?
yeah, no, we got way too cute there. I want to give a lot of credit, I think, to Liam Cohen, because you want to talk about coaching and like culture and resiliency. The Jacksonville Jaguars committed the biggest choke job of the season thus far when they blew that massive lead to the Houston Texans and Davis Mills and lost in a very embarrassing fashion. And it would have been very, very easy for the Jags to just kind of roll over and die. And granted, you look at the teams they played after the fact. It wasn't like they went through the stretch of time here after they started 4-1. They lost a really tough, ugly one to Seattle. They got hammered by the Rams out in London. They beat the Raiders by a point in overtime, where the Raiders went for 2 in the win and didn't get it. You blow that massive lead and lose a brutal game to Davis Mills and the Texans.
Oh
The
yeah.
season was in ruin at this point. Jags felt like they were in free fall. Nothing was going their way. And then they bounced back and totally dismantled the Chargers. They held Herbert to under 100 yards, getting guys benched during the game, all that sort of stuff. Dominant. Following it up with a tight win against Arizona, absolutely no doubt about it, in overtime, but still a good hard road win. And then when you think, wow, they blow out a team, they play them close. What do you know? They play a bad team close. They go on the road into Tennessee, and they just kind of take care of business. They dominate. They get stingy when the Titans started moving the ball, and they're sitting at 8-4. And the division, they're in first place in the AFC South. Because they have the current tiebreaker over the Colts with the division record, so they're in a good spot. They have tiebreakers over Kansas City, and they have tiebreakers over, I guess, really Kansas City's the only team at the moment. They tiebreakers over the Chargers as well. That's another fringe playoff team. So they're in a good spot, I think, in a humongous game against the Colts this week. So that'll I think really tell us a lot for both those teams who seem to be heading in opposite directions.
Yeah. I think this Titans team is like the worst NFL team since the Urban Meyer Jags.
Yeah, it's bad, and it's a shame because they got some nice defensive players, and any given week can kind of be pretty stingy on defense.
Like
But
Urban Meyer Jaguar.
yeah, but the issue is that just on the offensive side of the ball, Cam Ward showing flashes every week has to be encouraging, but everything else is just so
Here's the
abysmal.
thing here's what I find could be encouraging though for the Titans though, Michael. Number one, if they get the first overall pick, if there is a team that for some reason thinks Mendoza is going to be a franchise quarterback, that could be a franchise altering move where you can draft the player you probably would take at one anyway, and you get all these additional building blocks
Look at the
to.
Texans, man. They traded back out of 1 to take the quarterback they wanted anyways, and they got Will Anderson, who's a legitimate. He's like a top 5 edge rusher in all of football, maybe higher.
Well, look at the Bears with the trade they did for. They got Caleb Williams out of it.
Right. So there's ways to make very good trades, and I think I do agree with you that the Titans might be better suited to trade out of number 1 if they get it and bring it because they just need a lot. They need a lot of assets at this point. But yeah, next game to stay down there in the AFC South, we had the Houston Texans and the Indianapolis Colts. We were all over this one, John. That Texans defense is legit. It is very, very scary. And honestly, I didn't even think Daniel Jones played that bad on his broken leg. Jonathan Taylor didn't go nuclear, but he wasn't like a zero. It was more just Texans defense got tight. Maybe the Colts got a little hosed with some shady extra point looking thing going on. Their kicker missed an extra point, which screwed them badly. So some weird game overall, and the Texans just keep finding ways to win off the back of their defense, really.
Yeah, do you know the Texans kind of are like, to me, they're like the early to mid 2000s like Steelers, where their defense just carries them to so many wins. And CJ Stroud, not gonna lie, Michael, first half looked pretty bad. Looked really bad because he hadn't played.
His pocket presence, it used to be one of his like super strengths, and it's even before the concussion, it definitely looked like it took a hit this season.
I will say this though too. Yeah, right, pocket presence because Davis Mills is way less talented than CJ Stroud.
Yeah, it's not even close.
But the one thing he does better than CJ Stroud, which unfortunately, when I say this, their O line's still bad.
It's not.
It's better than last year,
it's better than beginning of the season. It's still not a good unit, but they got guys.
It's like, still bad. But Davis Mills just gets the ball out quick. So
listen, you got Woody Marks, who's been a nice crutch to lean on.
has really been improving over the last 4 weeks.
Yeah, and Nico is still very good, but you're still without, Tank Dell and stuff, and they really all their young receivers are just not really panning. But I mean, that defense is legendary. You said early to mid 2000s Steelers. That's like it's giving me 2000s Ravens vibes too, with just how that defense there. And again,
You know what though, too? I said that before too. I said 2000s Ravens vibes. Here's the thing though with the Texans though. But here's the contrast between this Texans team and that Ravens team. Jamal Lewis, running back.
yeah, but I mean, they went weeks without scoring offensive points.
That's because they had like Tony Banks and Trent Dilfer quarterback.
I'm just saying,
CJ
like,
Stroud is way better than both those guys.
exactly. And I know that today's league is very different, but I mean, they keep shutting down, by EPA, the Colts offense was so ridiculously good and they're just shutting it down. They put Josh Allen in hell. And we talk about big
Well,
tests. I'm very
Daniel
excited.
Jones, I think right now the big concern, obviously, in Indy is Daniel Jones and his fractured leg. He looked like, he was basically turned into a pocket passer. That's not his strong suit. Daniel Jones is very good when he's able to use his legs. You know, like another quarterback that we know that was coached by Shane Steichen, and mixing up the offense because now his legs are he's got a broken leg. I think it's going to really affect Jonathan Taylor's effectiveness because, and also too, Jonathan Taylor over the last couple of weeks, Michael, is kind of slowing down a little bit because he's been used so much.
Well, they're becoming a little more predictable. Daniel Jones being injured a little bit and not as effective as he was early in the season. Yeah, teams are keying in. They're like, you know what? Yes, we will make Daniel Jones beat us, especially if he's limited with his legs, and it's working out. The Colts are, I think, definitely at risk to miss the playoffs because they banked home a lot of wins against an easy schedule. Their schedule is brutal to finish out the season. They go ahead and play at Jags, at Seahawks, at home 49ers, home Jags, at Texans to finish the year. That sucks. That is brutal. That is a very difficult stretch.
The Colts have
You
a
play the teams on your heels twice and three
the
times.
Colts
I
the
mean,
Colts have a very brutal history playing in Jacksonville. Is the game
they play them twice. Like it doesn't,
so they're gonna split those games, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, and also, well, at least we never know. But the Texans, their next
The
big ticket
Colts are
item.
in Jacksonville.
Yeah, their next big ticket item, the Texans, that is they play Kansas City Sunday Night Football. So another huge test for that defense. That if they can slow it, like they can effectively eliminate the
This
Chiefs
is
with a
going to
win.
be a utterly desperate Chief team.
They can eliminate the Chiefs with a win, not mathematically, but spiritually. Like another loss to Kansas City
I
would
agree.
drown them
I
tremendously.
agree.
What would that be? Their seventh loss? Yeah, man, that's really tough to come back from.
They got to win out if they lose to the Texans.
Next game, an entertaining one, I guess. I guess it was pretty boring. I don't know. The Saints,
I knew it,
Dolphins.
dude. I knew it when we were picking that game. I was like, am I really going to trust Tua Tagovailoa laying 5.5 points to anyone?
I mean, they were there. The defense couldn't
Yeah, they
hold
were
up for
there.
them.
Yeah, but we saw it like I think because by the way, when Michael and I text each other back and forth when we're watching like football, we'll just say guys' names to each other,
Yeah,
and
we
I'm
know
like,
something.
I think I said, "Oh my god, Tua is so bad."
It's just too. Yeah, yeah. No, it's
Chuck has an awful turnover, and you're like, "Oh well, here comes the blowout." It's like the turnover that leads to like the floodgates opening up.
yeah.
Tua throws to
Um,
no one in the end zone, bad interception. And then he has like this,
yeah.
and then they're running this one play. So basically, like Chan was going to run for 200 yards, pretty much
Right.
that game, right? And then for some reason they were like, "Oh, let's just let's get Tua to throw some passes. We got to get Tua
Yeah.
involved."
Yeah. And yeah. So that was a whole nothing burger, really. Um, the next game is just another chapter of what a brutal Falcons season this has been.
You know how
Losing,
bad you got to be when I'm like I'm going to hammer the Jets today. We're going to hammer the Jets.
yeah, the Jets go ahead and defeat Atlanta at home. Um, just another tough one.
When are
Nick
we going
Foles.
to talk about washed up Kirk as one of the worst quarterbacks in football?
I mean,
We talk about nine.
there's
We
not there's
talk
nothing to
about
talk about.
Fields.
He's a backup quarterback. Like there's nothing really to hold against him. He's just a backup at this point and barely serviceable at that.
You know
He
what
threw
Kirk
for
Cousins
a couple hundred
basically
yards.
is? He's like a money laundering like scheme. You're paying him $40 million for nothing, and you're just
Yeah, I mean the Falcons are just really stupid as a franchise. Lamar Jackson was right there, and you decided to give 40 million a year to Kirk Cousins to then not have him be your starter. Okay, make it make sense to me, man. I have not a clue.
Could you imagine
Um,
Lamar Jackson in Atlanta?
they'd be. I imagine that running attack. I imagine how dynamic, how much even better Bijan would be, and age and Algier would be even more effective, and Drake London. Having a receiver with that wide of a catch radius with Lamar, how great that would be. With him scrambling, just put it anywhere in the area, he's going to catch it. It's great. Yeah, can only imagine. This next game, the Arizona Cardinals lost what ended up being a pretty
Tampa
tight
Bay
one
stinks.
to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Yeah, the Buccaneers, I mean, they were never good. Full stop. They started the year, 5-1, but that was always fraudulent. They were even 6-2 before they dropped three in a row to like actual good teams. Baker was playing out of his head and was getting bailed out. They were doing a lot without Bucky Irving, and they finally got him back, which definitely you could feel that it provided some sort of spark. But
You're pissed because they screwed you over on that first anytime touchdown to Tristan Wirfs.
yeah, I mean, whatever. But yeah, no, it was. They're just not a great unit, and like defensively, they're not all that good when they have like a defensive head coach, and you'd like that to be just in theory better, but he just throws blitzes at everything all the time, and that just doesn't always work. Jacoby Brissett just threw for 300 yards. Granted, didn't score a ton of points, but we're talking about a 3-win Cardinal team, and Tampa Bay is very, very much at risk here to blow the division. They have 2 games against the Panthers remaining. I know they play the Saints and Falcons the next.
Panthers got way more juice.
Panthers got a lot of juice. I think Bucky helped out a little bit with Tampa, but it's
I think
really.
I think the well, do you want to talk about that next game then about
Yeah, sure. Let's
Panthers?
let's talk about it. The
Because
Panthers.
look, I mean, the Cardinals, Jonathan Gannon's probably dead coach walking. I don't know if they're gonna get rid of Kyler, man. Like,
Uh,
what, you're gonna roll Jacoby Brissett as your starting quarterback?
no, they
No.
they they draft one, or get one back depending on where you ship them.
Draft one. Who the hell are they gonna draft?
Hey, John, what do you want him to do? Like
What,
then they're gonna
Lamar
roll
Sellers?
with then they're gonna roll with Brissett for a year. I mean, they only have
No,
3
you're not
wins.
gonna get rid of Kyler. They're gonna keep him.
Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I think if I'm Arizona, I think I'm blowing the whole thing up. They stink. No doubt about it. They're just bad. They have 3 wins. It's not like they're a 7-win team that's like, oh, what are they going to do? They're really in this purgatory. No, they just blow. Like they just flat out suck. They play teams decent, every now and again, but they're not good.
I'm calling the Cardinals. Hey, remember when you ruined us winning a Super Bowl by sneak hiring Gannon? Yeah, you're gonna give me your second round pick for Tanner McGee.
Well, yeah. But yeah, to move on, we have the Panthers and the Los Angeles Rams. And the Rams, I mean, there was touchdown interception ratio where I heard it way too much. It was really getting over the
Dude,
top. It was
that's
so
like
obvious
that is,
he was
dude.
throwing picks that day.
I'll say this: whenever they bring up a quarterback not turning it over for a while, that's always the kiss of death. It's that in football, along with so and so's made 18 straight field goals of 50 yards or more.
Yeah. And Stafford, early on, it was looking great. All Rams, getting the turnover, everything was going wonderful. And then all of a sudden, things started creeping back. They were driving. The interception hits off a defender's head and tipped up in the air in the end zone, picked off. He throws the pick six to Mike Jackson. The Panthers, I guess, to briefly talk about the Rams, because I don't think this is like, oh, the Rams, they're frauds, they're frauds. Like, no, I think
Due for a
they
flat
were
spot.
they were due for a flat spot. And listen, the weakness of their team, no doubt about it, is their secondary, and everyone knows that. And just when everyone thought Emmanuel Forbes was kind of coming along and he was playing well, a nice stretch of games, he got burnt toast. He got burnt badly twice by two different receivers, and it cost them the game. Sure, it did. It was 2 fourth downs. He got beat over the top by Coker and Ted McMillan, and two touchdowns that won Carolina the game, along with some of the turnovers created by their defense. Forbes, the Rams really, if their pass rush is not going to be fully cooking, they're definitely at risk to get beat downfield. I mean, the combination of all their corners struggling against the Eagles in the second half is how the Eagles beat them, obviously, and the block field goals. But that game's not even close if they can get a pass breakup on A.J. Brown, one of the 4 times that he hulked out on them and killed them. So besides that, I mean, I thought the
Yeah,
Rams
it's
was
people,
normal.
remember at the trade deadline we were like, wow, why did the Colts trade 2 first-round picks for Sauce Gardner? It's probably because the Rams were probably offered like a first and a second for him.
Maybe, yeah, maybe something like that for sure.
Because you remember when they won the Super Bowl, Michael, they
That's another
traded.
bad thing about the Colts. Sauce Gardner's calf injury that we all think is an Achilles issue. Yeah, I'm sure that is not good at all. But
Well,
yeah,
I was going to say, remember when they traded for Jalen Ramsey? Jalen Ramsey, big
big
reason why they won the
reason.
Super Bowl because he slowed down Jamar Chase and T.
Yeah,
Higgins.
well, loosely. I mean, he
They,
transformed that. He really helped turn that defense too with the guys they had. But listen, the Rams are still
the
definitely, I
Rams are
think,
the most competent team in terms of they don't have a coaching issue. They don't have like a bazillion injuries. They have weapons on offense. They can score points. They can rush the passer. They can force turnovers. They're much better against the run this year than they were last year when they were just, they gave up a combined 500 yards to Saquon Barkley.
no, yeah, they're the most complete team in the league for sure. But to look at the Panthers side of things, Derek Brown is an absolute machine. I mean, total game takeover, wrecking
One of the most
plays.
underrated players in the NFL.
Yeah, no, for sure. Does not get his praises sung enough. He really can wreck a lot of plays. And Mike
He reminds me
Jackson,
a lot
their
of Fletcher
corner.
Cox.
Yeah, and Mike Jackson, their corner, opposite of J.C. Horn, and so played great. Was they still gave up 28 points, so you can't it was a perfect game for the defense, but they created huge turnovers and getting the strip sack on Stafford and the pick six. It was just what they have done, their winning formula, which obviously is very difficult to replicate 4 games in a row in a playoff run or to even get to the playoffs. It's very hard to win this sort of way. But when you're devoid of talent and this is all you got to work with, and your quarterback has some nice highs, but he also has some pretty bad lows. If you can just kind of muddy up the game and live between the 20s and the game be slow it down, run the ball, control the clock, limit possessions, and then you just need to win those big swing EPA win probability crazy swing plays. Keep the game close. Maybe you look at it from a bird's eye, you're getting outplayed a little bit, but you know what? You get the pick six that totally transforms the game. You get the strip sack that clinches the game when the Rams are driving down, looking to tie or take the lead at the end.
Do you know what
You
I
get
find
an
interesting
interception
about
deep in
this?
the
You know
red
what I find
zone.
very interesting about this Panthers team, Michael,
Hmm.
is when you look at their team, they've combined aspects of previous Panther teams when they were good. Like now they have two good running backs. I remember when the Panthers had Jonathan Stewart and D'Angelo Williams. They had a very good 1-2 punch.
Right.
You look at
Ted
Ted
McMillan,
McMillan,
when they
big
used
wide
Smith.
receiver. The Panthers had a big wide receiver who was really good by the name of Mushin Muhammad.
I mean, and even his size, regardless, just having a top flight receiver, when
Well,
they had Steve Smith, how great that was.
who were their two best players? A D tackle and a corner. When they had those elite defenses with Sean McDermott, when he was their D coordinator,
They had
Star Lotulelei
and
and
Josh Norman
Josh Norman. So
and like
they're
Bradbury. No,
definitely
for
trending
sure.
in the right direction. And look at Bryce Young. Bryce Young's better this year than he was last year. He's getting better every year. You know,
Yeah,
and he
he's
reminds me a lot of Drew Brees, smaller quarterback. He just, I don't know, Michael. Like I feel like he gets a bad rap sometimes. I like him. You know,
the division. The division is going to come down to, how they play in their division games. They finish first of all, they're on their bye. Nice time for the bye, I'd say. Um, at Saints, home Bucks, home Seahawks, at Bucks. So they're, the Seahawks game is going to be a tough one. They might have to win out if they want to make it, win the division, whatever. But it's going to come. You got 3 division games left. It's really going to come down to those. If you can sweep it, you'll probably win the division. But it's going to be challenging. But if they're a team that you see in the playoffs, you're not going to be scared. It's going to be a team you want to see in the playoffs. However, if the game is close by like midway towards late in the third quarter and you've already turned it over, I'm shaking in my boots because although the scoring was different in the Packer game, very similar style of game. It was very ugly, very muddy, and the Packers couldn't finish in the red zone. They're turning the ball over in the red zone, and then the
Packers
Panthers
could have turned it over
capitalized.
even more.
Right, and it's like the Rams were driving to score another touchdown when Stafford throws his first pick, and then they get the ball back and they throw a pick six, and it's just uncharacteristic from Stafford, I guess, this year to be throwing interceptions. If you get in a game against a team like Chicago or a team like Green Bay again, like the Panthers, I'm not saying they're going to go on a run, but I do think they could win a home playoff game against, say, like Sam Darnold. Would that be the most shocking thing in the world if they win at home against the Seahawks or if they win at home against Brock Purdy?
I mean, if either one of those quarterbacks just decides to lay a massive egg, yeah, why
No,
not?
and it's something
I
that those
agree.
guys could be prone to for sure.
I
So
agree.
Panthers on the upswing. I'm not like thinking they're anything special, but
Panthers
they're
could be
definitely a gritty
Panthers
bunch.
next year. I'll make a prediction right now. The Panthers will be a sexy pick to win the Super Bowl next year
Ooh, ooh,
if they
ooh.
have a monster offseason. I mean,
Yeah,
like
I mean, they'd have to have a
if they go buck
enormous
wild in
offseason.
free agency.
I think they'll be a popular pick to win the NFC South next year. I'll say that. Next game we had the Seahawks Vikings. It turns out we were slandering 9 to not even realize he wasn't playing, and for some possible
No, he
way,
needs to be slandered,
the quarterback was actually worse than 9. Max
bro.
Brosmer
Rosmer, listen, man, he's an undrafted rookie quarterback.
is one of the worst games of football I've ever seen a quarterback play for Max Brosmer.
So, dude, that pick six he threw, that was wow. Like that was like 2020 Wentz. Like
Yeah, that was, what, Will Levis 2 years ago or last year. That was all the makings of like, man, this guy is horrendous. My lord, he is absolutely terrible. Yeah, he was not good. I mean, the Vikings had under 100 total yards as a team. Seahawks
is
defense
it
creating
bad
those
when
turnovers.
like I forget which analyst said it, but they're saying I think he said that the GM for the Vikings is like basically like people are talking about Kevin O'Connell being the hot seat. He said the GM should be relieved of his duties immediately at the end of the season for how badly he botched their quarterback situation.
Yeah, I mean, I would be pretty disgusted with the entire decision making of that. Um, I just think drafting JJ McCarthy was bad process in the first place. we talk about it the last handful of weeks of like the Michigan's offensive strategy in big games with McCarthy was to just run the ball a ton. Not, it didn't trust them a ton, didn't put the ball in his hands a lot, just asked him to hand the ball off a ton. And that's not really who I want my college quarterback or my drafted first round pick quarterback to be. And I don't know if it was Kevin O'Connell getting a little hubris that like, oh, he could fix anybody because he's a guru or whatever. But I do think they flew a little too close to the sun. I think Darnold having a playoff stinker and like a stinker in the final game of the regular season was like the best way for the Vikings to cut ties with him, to just let him go, because it was like, oh, listen, he was great for us, but when we needed him most, he came up small, and that we can't trust that. So
I think what
we're
really
happy to let him
protects
leave.
Kevin
That's why
O'Connell.
no one gave him crap for letting him leave. Could you imagine if he played well in a playoff game, but they just happened to lose and they let him walk in free agency? They would have caught a lot of crap, but they caught nothing in the offseason because everyone was just assuming that Kevin O'Connell could turn chicken shit into chicken salad and make JJ McCarthy something
Yeah,
competent.
it's not how it works in the NFL. You have to have talent. Like, I'll throw a hypothetical out here for you. Daniel Jones is a free agent, right? If Daniel Jones signs with the Vikings, let's just hypothetical. I'm gonna throw that hypothetical out there. Do you think Kevin O'Connell could make Daniel Jones look like he did for the most part up until he got hurt this year?
Sure,
Potentially,
sure.
maybe. Is he a better option than nine?
Yeah, I'd say that
Okay,
pretty confidently.
okay.
Like a team like the Vikings, did they take the swing on Kyler Murray? Are the Jags married with this new regime to Trevor Lawrence? I think there's some quarterbacks that could be moved with new coaches in those spots
I
that
could
don't love the
see
direction of that quarterback.
honestly.
We talked about it. We could see him. Who did we say was the next Goff Stafford trade? What was it? It was Lawrence swapping for, totally blanking, not remembering who we said.
Baker? I don't know.
Was it Baker? Could have been Baker. No, I don't think it was. Um, we didn't. I listened to this on Theo Ash's podcast. They proposed the new version of the Stafford Goff trade would be the Jags trading Trevor Lawrence and like picks to the Bengals for Joe Burrow, where Burrow is Stafford and Lawrence is Goff.
Why?
If the Jags don't love Lawrence
Yeah, but why would
and they
the
shop him,
why would the Bengals want Trevor Lawrence
what
though?
did I mean? What did Adam Schefter say? If Joe Burrow wants out, he's going to get out. If
Oh, I
he wants to, if he wants to get out, I'm sure he's going to have some say on where he's going to end up. And if Liam Cohen calls his agent, whatever, and it's like, listen, man, we could do something here. He might be all over it. I don't know. Regardless, just a hypothetical.
yeah, but
But
he's like Mr. Ohio. That's the sad part, you know.
well, the Bengals can do so much to
And the,
somebody.
I mean, the Jaguars are also still kind of a clown organization. I would,
All this has to say is we have barely talked about this game because of how awful and boring it was. But the
yeah, it cost
Seahawks,
me my fantasy matchup, man.
it,
JSN.
man, the
So
Seahawks defense, 30 points, man. They needed all 30. Anyways, the Seahawks managing to win games with their defense and not needing a lot from Darnold, it's a good formula to have. It's a
dude, you know
shame
what?
they
Dude, it
all
reminded me
better.
a lot of like early Legion of Boom vibes, where like Russell Wilson will just have a really bad game, but like they just completely physically dominated the opponent,
I'm
so he didn't have to
super
do anything.
intrigued to see what the Seahawks look like in the playoffs because I think JSN is definitely good enough to like dominate. But if Darnold's going to be struggling, I do think Seahawks
Did
defense
you
can
did you
turn it up
see
a
that the
level.
Seahawks have basically like aggregated with Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, basically like Marshawn Lynch?
Yeah, I mean, it is very interesting to look at. They run the ball a ton, and they're fine at it. They're nothing special at it, I bet they wish they were a little bit better at it because it would make their ceiling a lot higher. But it'll be interesting to watch them move forward. The next game we have, right, the Steelers losing at home to the Buffalo Bills in another nothing burger style of game. I mean, the
Let
Bills
me
in
ask
cold
you this.
weather
Can I
ground and pounded their way to a win.
let me ask you this? Aaron Rodgers, shocker, was not very happy at the end of this game when he had his face caved in with
Right.
3 broken bones in his wrist. He apparently decided to go on a tirade. He mentioned a certain player not showing up for meetings. So when he threw the interception, that, he basically called an audible for him to run a different route. He didn't run that
Yeah.
route. He ran the wrong route.
And Ben Solak did a little breakdown that was pretty good of receivers missing a couple hand signals during the game. And it's like, I don't know, man. Maybe in the offseason would have been a good time to get all your receivers on the same page with your hand signals. Just a
Oh, you
thought.
mean like not wait till like September 2nd to sign with the team?
Yeah, and then be pissed off that your receivers don't know your hand signals well enough. I don't know, man. It's not Devontae Adams out there. It's DK Metcalf. It's not, you know, uh,
Randall Cobb.
it's not Mercedes Lewis or Jimmy Graham or Jermichael Finley anymore. It's Jonnu Smith, and he's like a fine player. Nothing wrong with those guys, but they're not. They haven't been playing with you for 10 years. It's guys that you have seen for less than like 8 months. 8 months, less than like what 4 months? What are we in December now? When did he decide he was going to
Yeah,
sign?
Rodgers
August,
had so much continuity on the Packers when he was there
of
that
course.
as
He had
soon as
his
as soon as they decided to slightly change the continuity, happens to coincide when he wanted out.
and that's when he brought in his guys when he went to the Jets. Oh, I need Alan Lazard with me and like that sort of stuff, and guys that know my. Regardless, he did it to himself.
I
The
agree.
Steelers are what they always are. The Bills, their identity is through running the ball. The receivers are just not good. Shakir is very inconsistent, and you're asking like what would be a great third wide receiver to be a total number one, and that's asking a lot. We texted about this a little bit. How every big contender, especially it's really very very obvious with the AFC contenders how they've let their issues that was like, oh, this is the biggest problem with the Bills, this is the biggest problem with the Chiefs, this is the biggest problem with the Ravens. They've let those like fester over the last like 3-4 years or so, and like all at the same time are all rearing their ugliest of heads. And the Bills' biggest issue has been their like aging defense and their wide receivers, especially post Stephon Diggs. And here we go. Every time Josh Allen's looking downfield, and especially without Dalton Kincaid there, it is amplified tenfold that no one can get open. No one's open. No one is getting separation. It is pulling teeth of having to rip something into a super tight window or just throw a bunch of screen passes. We wonder why the Chiefs and Bills throw so many damn screen passes. It's because the receivers can't get open. So they got to get them the ball in their hands immediately and then hopefully set something up. It's just it's I'll forever keep looking at Devontae Adams as like, dude, anybody could have had that guy. And I think if any of those three AFC teams got him, whichever one would have won the Super Bowl this year. And now two of them could potentially miss the playoffs.
Yeah, Devontae Adams on the Bills.
Oh my God, could you imagine?
Even if they're not leading the AFC East because the Patriots are just,
How they'd be better. It'd be like
it
having,
would be like
Diggs,
they're the
but
wild card team we don't want to
it's like
play.
having Diggs again, but he's just like a better red zone threat too, where it's like, okay, now we can confidently throw the ball in the red zone without having to, pull teeth running it sometimes, or Josh has to throw on his Superman cape and dive into the end zone
You
so
know what?
gracefully.
What's sad, like kind of sad about with Josh Allen though. Like to me, like I remember as a kid when old John Elway won the 2 Super Bowls. I asked our cousin who's a Broncos fan, like, kind of naively, I'm like, how come he didn't win any until now? And he basically was like, John, he had to basically do everything all himself for like 80% of his career. And as soon as they got him weapons, like that's when he finally won. And I kind of hate to say this, I think Josh Allen's in for the same boat. He will play in a Super Bowl within the next 3 years. I'm confident in that, saying that.
I think you think people said that 3 years ago. I think people said that 5 years ago.
Well, now the Chiefs are like,
Yeah, but the perfect opportunity to have a down year, the same year the Chiefs are having a down year. You would have thought that, okay, the Chiefs have gone to 3 straight Super Bowls. Maybe let's push our chips in now because they're definitely going to have a down year soon. But
yeah, I think.
no,
Well,
no,
I
Keon
think yeah,
Coleman.
there's a certain NFC East team that's learning that the Bills' brain trust is basically, not as smart as they were led to believe.
Oh, Keon Coleman. Don't worry. Amari Cooper. Oh, don't worry about it. What are we
Okay,
doing here?
all right. I want
Anyways,
to I want to vent about this next game because it cost me $800 in betting.
well, I don't know how you. Oh, 1 second. All right, sorry about that. The this game cost you big. Oh,
Because
yes.
Aronde Gadsden got
Got
tackled
tackled at the
on the
1 yard line.
inch line, and I'm like,
Yeah,
and I
real
thought to
tough one.
myself, like, oh, this is going to cost me my parlay, isn't it?
Yeah, the Raiders took on the Chargers. Really, not much to say other than the biggest storyline, which is the health of Justin Herbert in this game. Obviously, Chargers took care of business. Didn't really. They were sweating a little bit, but then they just kind of pulled away. But Justin Herbert did suffer fractures in his left hand, a
A hand
non-throwing
that he
hand,
has broken
obviously.
before.
Yeah, and when you're a quarterback and you have these sort of injuries, you, to tease the Eagles game a little bit, you can't like take a snap under center. Like you just can't. You can't receive the ball with this bottom hand. That's not it's not natural to flip it either. You're under center like this. Your left hand's broken. That's doing a lot of work to go receive that. He can't do it. They were trying to do it on the sideline with him, and he really was struggling to do it. So he's not a guarantee to play. I'd be shocked if he doesn't play against the Eagles, but pretty much everything's going to have to be in shotgun. So that should, in theory, help a lot. His health is obviously very imperative to the team, and the offensive line being super banged up does feel like it's going to ultimately sink them. And him having a broken hand is part of that. Him getting hit a lot and sacked, and getting rid of the ball because there's pressure coming, all that sort of stuff. So the Chargers, it's a shame. They have a good record. They're sitting at um, they're sitting at 8-4. They're second in the division. They're in a playoff spot, but uh, it
O line
just
is O line is
the
decimated.
O line's feeble. It's like it's not you that O line is not standing against the Houston Texans in a playoff game or the Denver Broncos in a playoff game. That's just not. It's not going to fly. It's barely going to fly against teams like the Bills, who rush the passer really well. That's just it's futile. It's not going to work. So
I think before all these injuries, I think this Justin Herbert was on pace to have his best year
yeah,
as
since
well.
his second year or
Well,
whatever.
Quentin Johnston's basically kind of fixed. Lab McConkey's a dog. Keenan Allen is back, and
Gadsden's been really nice.
Aronde
Yeah.
Gaston. By the way, the Eagles. I don't know how good Aronde Gaston's blocking is, Michael, but gosh darn it, why did we not draft a tight end in like the tight end draft?
Yeah. Yeah. Nothing much to say there. But yeah, it does feel like the Chargers, they could sneak in. I do think their offensive line's going
Well, if they beat
to,
the
like,
Eagles on next Monday, then they're looking
well,
very
then
good
yeah,
to make
they'll
the
probably
playoffs.
make it, man. God forbid. But it's no guarantee
We're
that
not
they
going to talk
don't.
about
So
that.
yeah.
So
But the Chargers, they're just in an unfortunate spot, I'll say, where they can win games still, they can make the playoffs, but they're just not going anywhere with that offensive line. Sunday Night Football, similar to
go on.
the well,
I know you want to gloat. Go on.
There's not. Listen, I'm not. There's nothing to gloat. He's not a good. He's what he is. He's not a good quarterback, but they have a great defense. And even though the Commanders' offense, like I got to give the Commanders credit, you talk about a gritty performance and like just never just laying flat and keep pushing and keep going. That's exactly what Mariota and the entire offense they did. You throw a touchdown that gets called back, and the immediate next play is a touchdown. It's like, oh my god, like they are, or down to the 1 yard line. That's right, Devo didn't get it, but down to the 1 yard line. It's like, wow, you throw the interception on fourth down, but it's pass interference, and you don't let it like falter you. And granted, they might have got away with a pick penalty on their game time touchdown, but it was right there. It was right there to go for two in the win. Benito made some really nice play. And that's just kind of been the MO of
Shame for
Denver.
Benito. I think if Myles Garrett wasn't going to break the sack record, he's probably the defensive player of the year.
He would definitely get consideration with Micah and all that. But Denver, it just feels like they're gonna the way they're gonna lose in the playoffs just feels like it's gonna be really grueling. Obviously they could win the Super Bowl, sure. That defense is great enough, and Bo Nix can make some plays to really help you out. And if you put
What's
as little on
serious
his
about
plate as
the
possible,
Broncos defense, though, their issue, though, I think, is their corners. Especially, we saw a lot without Sertan. But Michael, when they go in the playoffs and they go against a team like,
they
pick
run. I mean, against who? Like that's my point. Like who? What great receivers reside in the AFC at the moment? In the
Nico
AFC playoff
Collins.
picture, that is. That's one guy. Sertan, go follow him. It's fine. No AFC true contender has two great receivers. The only team that's like that is Cincinnati, and they're obviously I guess in theory the Bengals could go on a run and make the playoffs. If they win out, but like, well, what? Ooh, Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman. Ooh, scary. Rasheed Rice is nice, but is he really taking the top off? Not a ton. And what?
I think
Xavier
we
Worthy?
overrated Rasheed Rice a little bit.
I think he's good. It's just
When he was out, everyone's talking about Rasheed Rice. Like, oh, wait, watch out for Rasheed Rice.
I
Or,
mean, he's still
yeah,
putting up great numbers. What did he have? 8 catches for 100 yards against the Cowboys. Like he's still very good. It's just no AFC contender has two guys that can really threaten like Riley Moss. And you could come up with adjustments to help give him some extra support if need be, because you can trust Sertan and you can trust your pass rush. It's the best way to hide a second corner is
so
by
what you're
having a
saying
great
is if we
corner and a
get
great pass rush.
Rams Broncos Super Bowl, that Devontae Adams is going to go nuclear.
Right, right. Like you gotta. That's my point. We gotta wait till if the Eagles play them in the Super Bowl, or if the
Or
Rams play them in the Super Bowl.
Puka's going to go nuclear.
Yeah, they're the Rams play them in the Super Bowl, or the Lions somehow make the Super Bowl and play them there. Even Green Bay could probably do a pretty decent job threatening them, even though their receivers aren't that great. Or if Dallas goes on some crazy run, yeah, I think Pickens and Lamb could do a good job threatening. But in the AFC, it's kind of dire. It feels like the way they're going to lose in the playoffs is just the one score game not going their way for once. It's just the one score game that some team finally knows how to finish them off. The Eagles were up big; they could have easily put that game away. A team that has a better running game can put a game away against the Broncos. Maybe Bo Nix throws one of his awful turnovers in the fourth quarter instead of in the first quarter, like that. That those are things that are just looming for like Denver's eventual doom. But as long as it doesn't keep happening, they're gonna keep finding ways to win. And then this game against Washington was another example of that. That's for sure. To wrap up this past week, we had a Super Bowl rematch of the New York Giants in New England take on the Patriots. Jackson Dart made his return, made a couple nice plays, took a huge hit on the sideline because he's an idiot. Didn't get out of bounds. It just
Man, that was one of the most. Whew, I mean,
it was an awesome hit. It was legal. It was very legal. Dart is better. I get a lot of credit. Much better than I thought he was going to be, especially this soon in terms of pure like throwing of the football, arm talent, all that stuff. I'm impressed. I'm legitimately impressed. But his rocks for brains is going to be what does him in his career, along with his Dumb and Dumber buddy Cam Scattaboo, where they're just going to throw their head around like they're rhinos or something like that. And Jackson Dart is said about 4 times, and you heard it over the broadcast and after the game and whatever, of, oh, this is football. This is just the way I play football. You're not going to be able
he
to
said
take that
this
away
isn't
from me.
soccer.
He said it in John Gruden's quarterback camp of like, listen, I know one way,
Dude,
and
Tom
that's it.
Gruden tweeted out, he's like, dude, get out of bounds. What are you
Dude, John
doing?
Gruden of all people was in back in the summer was like, dude, you need to protect yourself. You lean and you watch it. You watch his games in college and stuff. He's lowering his throwing shoulder and his head to deliver a hit when he has the football. It's like, hey, idiot, if you want to actually be something in this league for more than a cup of coffee, protect yourself a little bit. You're clearly better than we all thought you were going to be. Stop shortening your career by running like a freaking moron, like a bull in a china shop out there.
Well, that's an issue for the Giants, but I think their biggest issue now that like the coach is gone and their defensive coordinator is gone, Michael, it has to be Abdul Carter just being insanely immature.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would bother me,
Because
I
he was
guess.
the third overall pick in the draft.
Yeah, he's supposed to be like the next Micah Parsons. And like, I do think he's still very talented. I think he's going to be a really nice player. But yeah, he's got to work out some maturity issues. And the best way to do that is to, fix a culture problem. And the Giants, obviously, for years now have had poor culture, ever since the infamous boat picture or whatever. They're like 47 and 100 or something ridiculous like that. And it's you don't see that a ton around the league. You see that every now and again, and it just feels like every team that you see something like this going down for, it's not a good team. You know, the great teams aren't having players skipping meetings and getting in trouble for it and getting all these benchings for a first quarter. You would have thought the first time it happened it was going to get through to them, and clearly it didn't. So yeah, I think you just need a
He
vibe
did get
shift
a
in
sack
there.
against the Patriots.
He's a good player. He's a great player, in fact, as a rookie. He's very effective. You got to get his head screwed on straight. And then whatever that's going to take is whatever that's going to take. But the Giants are just what are they 2-11 now? Like it's just tough, man. They are.
Well, if you're a Giants fan, listen, this guy was campaigning wanting to be an Eagle. He's an Eagles fan.
Yeah,
And
he
the
was
fact that
very
he's
much
come to New York
celebrating the
and
Super Bowl.
he wanted to wear Lawrence Taylor's number.
Yeah,
Who, listen, man, Lawrence Taylor, human being, terrible person.
yeah,
Lawrence Taylor, Lawrence
he's
Taylor, the
horrible.
football player, is the greatest defensive player of all time.
Right,
And he's the greatest Giant, which makes him the greatest Giant of all time.
right.
Michael, imagine if the Eagles drafted like a defensive end and he wants to wear Reggie White's number. You and I never watched Reggie White as an Eagle, but your dad did. Your dad would be like, dude, like, no way. Like,
No, yeah, right. So,
relax.
um, yeah. So they have their issues, but as far as the Patriots go, their cake schedule is like, listen, they're doing what they have to do. They got to win their easy
I
schedule,
have
and that's what
I
they're
mean,
doing.
is this a hot take? I still think Stafford is the MVP.
Sure, yeah, I don't necessarily disagree.
But you
I
saw
think
today that now Drake May is the favorite.
he's the betting favorite. It's not by a ton. Like, Stafford could very, you know, go on a run again and
Drake
take
May
that
had a
from
good
him.
game. I thought he was going to have more of a game where it's like, wow, like Drake, like
They're not playing good enough opponents to really have that sort of vibe game. I'm telling you,
he's also not really
they're
having games like Daniel Jones did early in the year where they're just like scoring 49 points.
I mean, in this game, he, you know, 24, 31, 282 passing yards and two touchdowns. Like it's a great stat line. Like it's nothing to
Yeah.
slouch at. They're just not playing good enough teams. He had the signature win opportunity in Buffalo and he pulled it off. And it was just so long ago that when you think about the realm of MVPs and how those situations sort of go, you got to play a good.
Let
It's got to be
me let
against a
me
good
throw a
team.
scenario at you.
Like Wentz is. If I think of Wentz when he won the
I was
would
gonna
have won the
say,
MVP.
if there's a team this year that is like the 2017 Eagles, it's the New England Patriots.
Yeah, I mean,
Obviously, that
regardless,
Eagle team is better,
yeah, by a lot. I mean, you
but
look at the Patriots. If you look at MVP narratives and how it goes, the game that Wentz put on in the Coliseum against the Rams at 4:30, two top of the class NFC teams.
geez, you don't want to compare May to that because he tore his knee in that game.
Well, I mean, listen to what I'm going to say. If he doesn't tear his knee and finishes the game out, that's signed, sealed, delivered. The MVP is free for Carson Wentz. Just don't shit the bed the remaining 3 games or whatever it was. And he wasn't going to do that. He hadn't done that all season. That was coming off a loss against Seattle on Sunday night and then bouncing back to have your probable best game of the season and willing your team to a victory on a day where your defense was not good. That is the cream of the crop. That would have, betting odds that Wentz goes to minus 350 to win MVP, that sort of thing, that sort of situation. Drake May, unfortunately, isn't playing a good enough team in the big spot like that. Like the team,
Well,
the next 2 games he
the
plays
knock on
are
the 2017 Eagles, if you remember, Michael, when we were getting pissed, and we didn't have the podcast back then, though,
was that
was
they had an easy schedule. I understand,
exactly
but
they had an easy schedule too, man. They're playing
yeah, but when they
crap teams.
what were the Rams were great. The Rams were 9-2 or whatever, and the Eagles were 10-1. Like that was it. That was the moment.
Well, I think the potential Rams game for the Patriots may be when they have to play the Ravens.
Well, they play the Bills next week. Like that's a pretty big spot if he can
And
outduel Josh
Bills, the
Allen
Ravens.
again.
If they beat the
Yeah,
Bills and the Ravens, man, I don't know. Are we gonna still say like cupcake schedule?
I mean it's like no, but if they lose both of
If
them,
you had, okay, let me throw this at
if
you.
they lose both of them, what are we going to say?
They're frauds,
Fraud watch. If they split, which would be pretty normal to split, I'm not
which
going
I
to call
think
them
is they're gonna
fraud.
split. You're not gonna get
Feels like a
both.
split, but maybe they win both. I mean, they're playing much better than both of those teams right now. Definitely.
They're
If
also
Drake
they're
if
also
Drake
way
May goes
better.
the next 2 games throwing
They're also
7
way better coached.
touchdowns,
They're also way better coached than those two
yeah,
teams.
absolutely. If they go if Drake May throws in the next 2 games like 600 yards and 6 touchdowns or more, whatever, and no turnovers, and the Patriots put up 30 plus points in both games and they win, yeah, the MVP's his. If he lays a couple eggs or one like bad egg, mm, even in Wentz's loss to Seattle, he made some plays that were like, holy shit. Some of it, you look up Carson Wentz highlights, probably the some would say the most impressive one is that throw against Seattle in a losing effort. So, if you make some splash plays in a loss, that could still boost your MVP stock. But the Patriots as a whole, taking advantage of their bad schedule, they feel like they're poised to get the 1 seed, and it feels like they're a first round exit to whoever comes into Foxborough in the divisional round. It just does. whether that be like Houston and their great defense or Mahomes or whatever. It just feels like how it's going to go. I can't see this team going to the Super Bowl. I get it. It's very open and anybody could do it, obviously.
I think we're gonna have a extremely lopsided Super Bowl where the NFC team will demolish the AFC team.
Yeah, yeah. If like the Rams get out, yeah, sure. I could see it. Um so yeah, that wraps up week 13. And we have a game to pick. We have a Thursday night game to pick to kick off week 14. Great one. Another great one. Thursday Night Football has been pretty kind to us, I have to say. It's been a lot of good games, and this is no exception. The Detroit Lions are at home after playing on Thanksgiving to take on another team that played on Thanksgiving, the Dallas Cowboys. I don't think Amon-Ra St. Brown is playing at all this week. I feel like there's just no way. They said like a 1 to 2 week injury. I doubt he's playing. I really do. I know it's very much panic time, desperation time for the Detroit Lions, but I don't think Amon
Do
Ross is
you
going to be good enough to
remember
go.
last year when Chucklehead Dan Campbell ran the score up on the Cowboys?
Yeah, sure.
Do you think they? Don't you think the Cowboys remember that?
Yeah, I mean the Cowboys are playing great football right now, and if the NFC didn't have wasn't so just filled with teams stacking wins that might not be that great, but they're winning a bunch of games anyways, like the Bears or the 49ers or something, I would very much believe in the Cowboys to make the playoffs. And listen, they are in a tremendous position to make the playoffs. They had this really brutal 3-game stretch against the Eagles, the Chiefs, and now the Lions. They've already won 2 of those games. If they can manage to go 3-0 against the 3 top teams like that, first of all, I'm going to be terrified for the division, depending on what we do. If Dallas goes ahead and wins in a couple days, the amount of pressure on the Eagles to win against the Chargers is going to be astronomical. And it's going to be scary. It is going to be scary. The Cowboys' offense is clicking on a lot of cylinders, and their defense is definitely improving. The acquisitions that they made have certainly been very effective for them, and they're playing good ball. Dak seems to be in a mode where he might give you one if you can get pressure in his face, but if you struggle to get some of the pressure home, he's going to pick you apart like he's always been able to do. The offensive line of the Cowboys seems to be gelling. Defense is gelling. They're playing great football. They're a very scary team at the moment.
I have a couple things about this game I want to bring up. The Cowboys just aren't as good on the road as they are at home. So the Cowboys have one. They have 2 road wins, Michael. They were at the then winless Jets and the Raiders. Say what you want about Detroit. The Detroit is way better than both of those teams. So this is a very huge road test for the Cowboys. Even without Amon-Ra St. Brown, though, listen, man, the Lions can still score points. And listen, for the Cowboys, this Cowboy team, it's like whatever they show you, they can be competent. It's like they take 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I'll say this about the Lions. I've been pretty good at picking these Thursday games. Not to toot my own horn. The line is 3 points by Detroit. I think this game's going to be a push. But I'm going to take Detroit.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm going the other way here. I'm taking the Cowboys. You talk about trending, the way teams are looking. ebbs and flows tend to level themselves a little bit by the end of the regular season.
Well, God, who's on a downswing right now than the Lions though? Like who's
That's my
due?
point. So, like, are they trending down because they're just going down? Frank, how many shots do they have to take? Amon-Ra goes down. Frank Ragnow turns out he's got a hamstring torn off the bone. We thought he was going to come back to save the Lions, and physically incapable of being out there. Their interior offensive line is really a disaster, and Jared Goff, it just can't move. And I'm just envisioning Kenny Clark and Quinnen Williams against the interior offensive line of the Lions, and it's just not a pretty sight for Detroit. I think that they're going to want to do something. They're going to have to get outside, but I don't know, man. The Cowboys are just they're playing very, very well. It didn't shock me that they beat Kansas City, and it wouldn't shock me if they won again this week, and that would be 3 straight huge upsets for them on their way to pushing for a playoff spot. And I'm just going to kind of keep believing in them. In Detroit, they seem to be floundering a bit, and it feels like that flounder, in my eyes, is poised to continue without St. Brown. And again, I'd be really shocked if he plays. And it's one of those things that if he does play, I don't know how effective he's going to be. I do think he's going to be close, though, like the previous 2 Cowboys games have been. You're right. Good point with the whole road thing. They beat up the Raiders on the road after the trade deadline, and we were kind of chalking it up like, well, it's the Raiders. Like, what do you expect? But this is true. This is a humongous test for them. If they manage to get out of here with a win, I mean, I think everyone in the Delaware Valley is going to be
The
very
Cowboys at
scared of
home,
what's
Michael,
coming.
this year, the Cowboys at home have scored. This is what they scored at home: 40 points at home versus the Giants, 40 points at home against the Packers, 44 points at home against the Commanders, 17 points against the Cardinals. Jonathan Gannon, I think, just has their number, right? I think that's an anomaly. 24 points against a stout Eagles defense. 31 points against Kansas City and their defense. Now, on the road, 20 points against the Eagles. 14 points against the Packers.
Bears, you mean?
Bears. 37 points against the Jets. It's the Jets. 27 points against the Panthers. 24 points against the Broncos. 33 points against the Raiders. So,
I mean, it's been a pretty good offense. Like, I think that
and the
Cardinals
Lions
game,
at home score a lot of points. I think it's going to be a really close game.
I do think it's going to be a close game. I think
I think
that
it's going to be
Cardinals
a
game
close
is going
game.
to be
That's
the
why I think it's going to
outlier.
be a push. So don't bet the spread. If you think the Lions are going to win, just bet the money line. That's my
I
recommendation.
think I think I mean the Cowboys by the end of the season are absolutely going to be kicking themselves real hard for those losses to definitely the Cardinals loss, but then also that Panthers loss was definitely very, very frustrating. Must have been. But yeah, I'm excited for Thursday. That'll be a fun one to tune into and see how the class of the NFC handles themselves. See if the Lions can fight their way back out of treacherous waters, and see if the Cowboys can keep riding their hot streak. But with all that being said, everybody, I think that'll do it here for tonight.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you for tuning in, everybody. Enjoy your night. Take care. Take it easy.
For
And
the
we will
rest of your
get
week.
back. Rest of the week, we'll get back to you this weekend.
We are part of the Fired Up Sports Network of shows. Please check out other Fired Up Sports Network podcasts like the TheP-LotPod, Water Cooler Talk, Bell Smashers, Philly Sports Love and Pain, Drunk on Broad, Beer Battered Sports, and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out Mark Ramos' Roundup on firedupsports.com, which breaks down the happenings going on with all your favorite local teams.